Hey guys, Mermaid of Atlantis is done, so I thought I would take this opportunity to show you a close-up look at the beading and also the backstitching that I did. So I will start at the top here. This is the very top of the pattern, this seashell at the very top here. I'll get in close. Just a few little beads in the center there. There's also a running border that has beads, a smaller backstitch line, and then a cross stitch line. I really like this effect. I chose to do the inner border in 3371, just dark brown. It was originally supposed to be Krennic, but I thought it would clash a little bit with the variegated thread on the outside, so I decided to just make it brown. This is the fish at the top of the pattern here, surrounded by some beautiful variegated thread is the kind of turquoise. There's Krennic in the middle of these little shapes and some floating beads. So I'll get really close here. So just some green beads in the actual fish, and then the majority of the beading is kind of floating. I used Wonder Invisible thread for my beads. That's what was recommended from the pattern. I was worried initially that because I'm using 25 count Lugana that you may be able to see the fabric through, like basically I was worried that the hole left by the empty cross stitch would be too big for the bead, but I had some really small beads in this pattern and I didn't have a problem with that at all. I'm really happy with it. So we'll go down now to my absolute favorite part of the beading, which is this beading in her hair. I'll also take a second here to talk about the back stitching. I think this turned out so lovely. I am maybe the only person in the world who doesn't hate back stitching. And I think in particular, I'll just get it on her face here. The backstitch in this pattern, specifically in this arm area here, I think is so delicate and nice. No harsh lines, no really straight lines, a lot of tiny little angles here that make this look like an actual human arm, which is nice. So back up here to, as I said, my favorite part. She has this crown of beads. And then there's a little braided design down into her hair. These beads here are the biggest ones that I worked with. These are all seed beads. These green ones, the majority of the beads were this size, and then there are some in her tail that are very small. So lots of detail work here. I am really happy with how the beading came out. This was my first time doing it. It was a little bit slow going, but it was pretty addictive once I started, you know, filling in all the gaps in the pattern. I'll move down here into this floral thing that she's holding. The pattern just says it's a treasure, gold treasure. So these red flowers here are all beads. This is the most heavily beaded area, I think, in the entire pattern. Her tail has a lot of beading, but this is the most concentrated area, just like beads beside other beads. So all of the gold here is Krennic. And maybe I'll get kind of a different angle here so you can see all of these light gold beads here. This was really interesting for me because these beads, I secured all my beads the exact same way, and I'll show you how I did that in this video, but these beads laid the opposite way, which I think was kind of fun. So I'll get right in here. You can see, maybe you can see the lighter and darker red beads here. That's how the majority of my beads laid. I stitched them, or I mounted them, I guess, so that they would be vertical. I didn't like the idea of them being diagonal. I'm too type A for that. I wanted them to be straight up and down. But these tiny gold beads here, they were wider. They hung, I don't know if this is making sense. The way they were mounted, they look more rectangular than the regular beads, and I really like that. So there is all the beading in this treasure here. And then we'll move on to the start of her tail. So there's some kind of iridescent bluish beads here, and then some more green. So in her tail, primarily I had these green beads along the kind of top part, the lightest part of her tail are these iridescent beads, and then let me see if I can find some tiny beads. These ones here, yes. These are tiny lime green beads. They're the smallest beads I worked with, and even those beads I think look nice in the space. There's one there. Tiny little baby beads. I like the different variation of bead sizes. These big ones I think add some really nice depth. And then the medium ones, and then these tiny ones are really just give a little bit of shine and color, aren't really noticeable as beads per se. So there we are, continuing down her tail. This beading on her fins I did at the very end. These are all just these small green beads attached just all beside each other. And they really add something in terms of the overall tail. This filigree in the corner here doesn't really have any beading in it. Those are my initials. That's how I sign my projects. That's just an approximation of the way I sign my initials and then the year. And then finally, the crest over here in the left corner. The beads that were added here were all of these red ones. Some of this I thought would bother me while I was stitching it, the fact that these aren't even, they're not on the same line. The crest isn't perfectly symmetrical, which bugged me a bit when I was stitching it, when I left the holes before I put the beads in, but I mean it looks great now that it's all done. Some more beads on beads, and then all the way to the very top there. Something else I should mention, I'm really happy with how secure these beads are. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get them tight enough, that I was just worried that they would feel loose, but they don't at all. And even 28 count, you can see this row of beads that are side by side. They have a nice amount of room. I've never stitched on a bigger, or I suppose smaller, even weave, so I don't know what the difference would be if you stitched on a 28 count or a 32 count as far as beads fitting in the space comfortably, but all of my beads fit really nicely. They're not really squishing each other. They all hang nice and vertically. So once again, I don't think I can actually show you the whole thing, but that is the Mermaid of Atlantis. Beading and backstitching done, and if you stay tuned, in just a few moments I will be showing you how I attached my beads. Alright guys, I just wanted to do a quick little demo on how I attached the beads to my project. As I mentioned, this is the first time I've stitched with any kind of bead embellishment. I did find a YouTube video that I found extremely helpful. It's actually where I decided, where I saw this technique of having the beads hang vertically as opposed to diagonally. They are extra secure. You go back through the bead to complete the stitch, so they are held in there twice, kind of. You have the one once over and then once back holding the bead, so they are nice and tight and secure. As I mentioned, I found this technique in another video, which I will absolutely link down below. She shows how to hang your beads diagonally both ways, how to hang them vertically like I've done here, and how to hang them horizontally, so if you want your beads to go lengthways. Alright, I am going to try to find a way to prop up this camcorder, and we will get stitching. Alright guys, you'll have to excuse the interesting angle here. This is kind of the best I can do. So as I mentioned, this is the way that I mounted all of my beads. So they are hanging, let me just see if I can adjust the light here. Maybe that's a little better. So they are all vertical. They're straight up and down as opposed to being diagonal. This is a relatively large seed bead. It's the largest one I worked with. And then I have two slightly smaller ones there. So these I've stitched with the Wonder Invisible thread just to show you exactly how invisible they are. This is 18 count Aida. This one over here I've mounted with black thread. And I'm going to stitch another one right now. So I've come up through the fabric as you would normally for any stitch. I've already threaded my bead. Let me just get it down there. So there's our bead. It's all ready to go. I am going to do the half stitch, just a normal cross stitch here. So that's the bead halfway mounted. Now you can leave them like this. The bead is diagonal here. You can go on to your next stitch. I was worried that this wouldn't be very secure, that it wouldn't be as tight as I wanted it to be, and also I didn't like the look of the bead being vertical. I thought they would look a little neater if they looked like this. So what you want to do then is just complete your cross stitch. So you're going to come up exactly in the spot you normally would. And now this is the point where you would complete your stitch and go into the top left-hand corner. What I'm going to do instead is bring my needle through the bead, so coming from the top down through the bead this way. What that's going to do is pull the bead tighter, and also when you complete your cross stitch, it's going to force it to sit vertically like these other ones here. So I'm just going to pull the needle through. So now we have come up, done our half stitch with the bead threaded onto the needle, come up the bottom right hand corner, and now we're just going to complete the cross stitch into the top left hand corner, pull it as you normally would, and you can see there's our bead. So there is a little bit of wiggle room if you're not happy with the way it's sitting. Some of these bigger ones, for me, I kind of twisted to get into position. And once you pull it nice and tight, you are all set. So that's the way that I secured all of my beads on Mermaid of Atlantis. Hopefully this is helpful. I'm sorry for the poor lighting and the unfortunate camera angle here, but this is kind of a tricky spot to be in. So as I mentioned, these 3 beads here are secured with the Wonder Invisible thread, and it is fairly invisible. It's very impressive. And these 2 here are secured with black. All right, that is how I mounted all of my beads. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. As I said, I will mention, I'll link the video that I watched before I started beading down below. You can check that one out. It helped me a great deal. And stay tuned for a little sneak peek at my new project. All right, guys, I have a new start to share with you. I'm working on a Blackwork sampler. I've never done Blackwork before, but something about it is really classic and appealing to me. I like the simplicity, I like how intricate it is, and I'm also a fan of the typically monochromatic background. So what I'm working on is called Save the Stitches. It is a sampler, as you can see, containing 131 plus Blackwork patterns. So there's just a sample of one of the sections. Each little shape is filled with a different Blackwork pattern. The pattern, as it's designed by Liz Almond, is just black thread, silver, copper, and gold metallic thread. And she uses 3 different types of beads. I'm only using 1 color of bead, just kind of a neutral beige. And this is the best part of this pattern. This is completely free. This entire 131 plus technique pattern is absolutely free on Liz Almond's Blackwork website. It's blackworkjourney.co.uk. I will link that down below. I heard about this pattern from Book Knurd, from Stitching Book Knurd podcast here on YouTube. I will link her channel down below too. She mentioned that she was going to do this in kind of a rainbow variegation, and I think that is so cool, and I cannot wait for her to start. As I said, I am sticking with the more traditional blackwork. So how it's laid out is, this is the size of the sampler. So I'm doing mine on 18 count Aida. I have never stitched blackwork before, so I chose Aida because I was worried about like messing up the counting on even weave. There is quite a bit of fractional stitching though, but I'm not having any trouble so far with it, so hopefully that'll be fine. So what she's done is the whole pattern is separated into these many parts, and each part contains this amount of design. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different patterns. And it's 3 blocks by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks. Oh my goodness, counting. So I'm going to show you how far I've gotten on this pattern so far. So this is my fabric. I chose 18 count Aida. This is oatmeal. I chose it mostly out of necessity. They have this at my Michael's, and I didn't want to wait to start it, so I just thought I would go with oatmeal. I'm really happy with it, actually. Let me sit down here. I'm happy with the color. It's not white. It has some tiny variegation in it. And I'm happy. I'm happy with how it's going to look with this. So this is the first block that I've done on this pattern. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different little patterns. The next block will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So let me just show you the work that I've done so far. Each design so far has had this metallic element and then one little beading addition. I have really enjoyed this so far. It's charted for 14 count Aida, I believe. This is 18 count, and so far I haven't found that anything is getting lost. I mean, it's definitely a lot smaller, but on camera it looks pretty true to the actual design. It doesn't really look muddled at all, which I'm happy about. So let me just zoom in here. This is the first section with the copper metallic thread. This is the second here with the gold. The third also with golds. The fourth with silver. And then the fifth tiny little section with the beads. I am using just black thread to secure my beads. I'm not bothering with the invisible thread. I think there's going to be so much black in this pattern that I think it'll look fine. So that is what I'm currently working on. Maybe I'll do a video as I complete each section of the pattern. This is going to take me a long time, but I think I'm going to be very proud of it when it's done. Like I said, Blackwork has kind of a timeless look to me. I'm hesitant to frame some of my other projects because I just think in time I'm not sure if I'll like them with the same intensity that I do now, and framing is so expensive, but this is something that I could definitely see framing. It's so classic looking, it's a lot of work, and I think it's going to look really impressive when it's done. So thank you guys for sticking through this hugely long video. Let me know how you attach your beads, if you do it in a different way from me. Let me know what you think of this amazing Blackwork pattern, and please do check out Liz Almond's website. As I said, I will link it down below. This entire thing is free, so if you just want to try a couple of sections or you want to do the whole sampler like I'm going to, feel free to have a look at that website. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!